Happy Monday and welcome to KCOU Kickoff here on KCOU 88.1 FM alongside Billy Jones. I'm Ian Paprocki, back for another week of Missouri Tiger football talk. It was a successful homecoming weekend. The Tigers are 5-0 and we are set to break it all down. Billy, good to be back here with you.
Yeah, glad to be back. How you doing, Ian?
Doing pretty good. It was a good weekend. Fun weekend of football. The Tigers take care of business, a good NFL slate as well. How about that 40-40 tie last night? Did you watch any of that Sunday night football game?
Yes, I did. Wild game.
What are your thoughts on ties, just in the NFL?
I don't mind it. Someone should try and win the game, though. I just think that the Packers were a little conservative on that last drive, and I kind of get it. You don't want to give them the ball back, but it's fun to see. It's interesting, I should say, to see teams that can score and can stop other teams from scoring.
Yeah, that's it's. I think when it comes to NFL, I wish they would bring the college football overtime rules in there.
Yeah,
it's just so much more fun.
It's a little more exciting.
At least,
yeah.
I was thinking last night, at least at the end of the 10 minutes, if you're still tied after 10 regular minutes, do like the 2-point conversion. Like the shootout 2-point conversion kind of thing that college football does after a couple rounds of that overtime. I don't know.
I just love to see teams be more aggressive in general, but I get it. It makes sense.
I also thought of a kicking shootout. Have the kickers just line up from 50, but then I feel like that would give kind of an unfair advantage to Dallas in that situation.
They'd never lose.
They'd never. Any game that's tied after overtime, they'd never lose.
That would probably put a higher premium on kickers. I'm sure they'd love that. They'd make a little more, obviously more pressure, but
yeah,
I'm sure you could butter your bread a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get into Mizzou football, I just want to remind you that KCOU Kickoff is brought to you by Champs Chicken, located on Cinnamon Hill Lane in Columbia. Champs Chicken offers fast and filling meals, perfect for game day, late night, or grabbing between classes. Real chicken, real fast, real good. Champs Chicken. 42-6, the final on Saturday. The number 20 Missouri Tigers, then number 20, moved up to number 19 in the AP poll with the victory, improving to 5-0 on the season. Billy, you were here in the studio on Saturday night producing that game. Cam Smith, Michael Moonen with a great call for the station live from Faroe Field. What were some of your takeaways before we kind of dive into some more specifics?
Yeah. This was Friday afternoon. You're at work. You finished the important stuff for the week. You got a meeting or two to sit through, but you're looking around staring at the clock, and you're not going to get ahead on stuff for next week. You're thinking about, whatever you got planned for the weekend, birthday party tonight, going to hang out with some buddies, watch football tomorrow. They mailed it in. And you know what? Like, the fact that they can mail in a game and still win it by 36 is impressive. I don't think it was Missouri's best performance, but you know what? A win's a win. And I think if you had told anybody here 5-0 awaiting Alabama, they would have told you they'd take that in a heartbeat. And you're not going to play your A+ game every week. I thought there were certainly some bright spots. Ahmad Hardy shined again. I thought Norfleet had a really nice game. Again, that defensive line, I feel like, it's hard to just go back to it time and time again because it feels wrong to just eternally give them credit. But boy, those guys up front are good. And they were awesome again on Saturday. As far as major issues with the team, I don't know if you feel better about any of them, but I don't think it's anything that terrifies me long term. I just don't think it was Missouri's A game. But you know what? The B game was more than enough to handle business against UMass.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know we've talked about some of those concerns. I don't think I feel better about them necessarily. But it's hard to really grade, I think, the performance when you're going up against a team like that. I mean, it's not SEC play. Mizzou, you're right. They did not play the A game and they still won 42-6. So it's kind of hard to look back, I feel like, at some of those specific issues. Like I thought the offensive line not quite as strong as it was in the past few weeks. I thought that, the secondary to me did not look great either. But then, I mean, you look at the stats, 6 points against, only give up the one first quarter touchdown. Like the numbers tell you everything looked pretty good, but from the eye test, there were still some concerns.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they came, I won't say they didn't come ready to play, but I feel like there just wasn't that intensity, at least in the first quarter.
No, and part of that I think is warranted. I think it's easy to kind of relax a little bit before the bye week, especially after an emotional win last week, and you get a real chance to reset. And we both know that they're going to be up for this game and they're going to be ready to play when Alabama rolls in. The question is, are they good enough to beat them? But I don't think this game, even if they had done against what they did against Louisiana, where they went out just start to finish, imposed their will and dominated, I don't think it would have changed a whole lot about how I feel about this team. So listen, you can wring your hands over it and you can say, man, there's some things to clean up. I don't think it's the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. No, I don't think it is either. And I think that, you look at what this team's been able to do at home too, and you kind of have to celebrate that. I know, not the greatest test in terms of competition, but they've now got 15 straight home wins. Last home loss was 2023 against Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. led LSU. Since that game, they've rattled off 15 straight at Faurot Field. That's the longest streak in the SEC and second longest in the entire country behind Oregon with an 18-game home winning streak. I know a couple of those streaks that were up there got snapped here recently. And so I think that's just a testament to, the energy around this fan base and what they bring on game day and just kind of a culture shift under Eli Drinkwitz. But it's something that's very impressive, and I think we have to recognize.
Yeah, impressive. I mean, I will pour a little bit of cold water on your on the rankings. I mean, or excuse me, on that statistic, and we'll see it tested a week from Saturday. But only 2 ranked wins over that period. One of them was Boston College. The other one was Tennessee. Again, impressive nonetheless. The level of consistency that Missouri's shown in terms of kind of elevating themselves above that tier of SEC teams that are kind of in that 6 to 7 win range, and a lot of that is about protecting home field, and they've certainly been able to do that, and they deserve a lot of credit. I don't mean to take away from that, but I don't know. A week from Saturday is going to be interesting. But nonetheless, I think the consistency is important. And you look at their record in one-score games, too. This is a team that when they get to the fourth quarter, we talk at length about teams that find a way to lose. And it felt like Missouri over the last, 5 years entering 2023, it kind of been one of those teams. But this is a team that when they get to the fourth quarter believes and knows and feels they're going to make that play that carries them over the line. And that's something that not a lot of programs have. And I think Missouri should celebrate that and make sure that that's something that stays with this program going forward. And, that's about conditioning. That's about coaching. Getting into tight situations and feeling like you're going to find a way is impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. And they'll have a chance to add some ranked wins to that streak, with Alabama being the next opponent at home. Bama with a huge win at Georgia, so they're back into the top 10. That'll be a premier matchup. And then A&M, assuming that they'll still be ranked later on in November when they visit Faurot Field, another chance for a ranked win at home there. So you're right. There hasn't been a ton of it on the streak, but an opportunity to add there. I want to specifically start to go into the position groups and break down this UMass game as best we can. Starting with the quarterback, Bo Pribula. So for Pribula, 26 for 29 on Saturday night, 241 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did not play the entire game. Matt Zollers came in the second half. Kind of more what we expected, what we saw in the Louisiana game. At that point, they're up by so much that they're not going to try and throw the ball. So Matt Zollers just 1 pass attempt, 1 completion. Tommy Locke gets into this game as well towards the very end. But in terms of Prebula, what were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah. I think it's just tough to fully evaluate it because I don't think they necessarily gave him all the opportunities that I would have liked to see. Again, I get it. You don't want to show all your cards. I think notably the lack of throwing attempts down the field has still been a little frustrating to me. I understand why. And part of it is scheme dependent. Like these teams are trying to play pretty safe against Missouri, but I would love for the Tigers to give this deep passing game. Like I would have loved to see them get it a couple chances to connect, get the timing and the feel right, so that when they play Alabama in 2 weeks, when they go to Auburn, it doesn't feel uncomfortable for them. I think that's one critique I have for the offensive play calling so far. Is I would just love to see them throw the ball down the field a little more, because that's something they're going to need to do. They're going to need to stretch the ball down the field. And obviously you can't put that on Prebula. I think they've done a good job of getting him on the edge. This is a weird offense because of the outside zone stuff. I think that means that you don't use Prebula's legs as much as you would otherwise. I think the injury to Sam Horn has also made them a lot more cautious, especially in games they feel like they can win without running him a ton. But I would love to see him more involved in the running game going forward. But again, really like the bootleg stuff. He's great on the edge, so would love to see some more of that as well.
Yeah, something that I noticed that they have done early in the season that they didn't really do on Saturday was throwing the ball over the middle of the field and attacking the middle of the field. Something we mentioned when they played Kansas, that they weren't afraid to do that at all. It was Kevin Coleman Jr. getting involved a lot. And he got involved quite a bit on Saturday night as well, but I just felt like there was that hesitancy. And I'm curious if you think that maybe they're trying to close the playbook a little bit and not really unleash everything they have, because as I was watching that game, that's kind of what I felt like. Yeah, it felt like a
lot of screens,
a lot of simple plays. It was sort of like we're not gonna just show off the best that we have right now,
and I think
we're gonna save
reasonable. That as long as you do have it in the bank and you feel good about your ability to execute. I think the other thing that I kind of glossed over that we need to talk about is this is now 4 consecutive games with a turnover for Beau Prebula. Now this one was a little funky because he climbs in the pocket. He's trying to make a throw late and the ball gets tipped. What I worry about is the way that Missouri plays is a very controlled. We want to be able to consistently move the ball on offense. That means there's a lot of long drives, which means the games have fewer possessions, which means those turnovers become even more costly. And I'm not a guy who's going to wring his hands about a quarterback turning it over every so often. I think my issue has been they're not turning it over trying to push the ball down the field. Like these have been short throws where he's just not seeing a defender. And obviously the Kansas game is a 3rd and long where he tries to do a little bit too much and loses the ball. So that's something I feel like Missouri's got to get fixed. And maybe that scheme stuff, getting him a little bit more comfortable, but he's got to just have the discipline to know, when he can and when he can't throw the ball over the middle of the field.
Yeah, the turnovers have definitely been a little bit concerning to me over the last couple of weeks. They haven't necessarily been good decisions by Prebula where luck just doesn't go your way. There are some interceptions, you're throwing the ball deep, it goes off your own guy's hands. It takes a funny deflection. Garbage time interceptions. Brady Cook barely turned over the ball. I think a large portion of his interceptions last year were just in garbage time when he's just chucking the ball down the field and seeing what happens. that hasn't necessarily been what the deal is with Berbula, and so that's something that he will have to clean up, I think, moving forward, definitely into SEC play. But again, you didn't need him to carry your entire team like you haven't, the last few weeks. You didn't need that Kansas-esque performance. You just needed him
save
to
the good ones.
Yeah,
save the good ones.
You just needed him to play a solid game. And I mean, outside of the interception, I did think, he was solid. There wasn't a whole lot to complain about. He ends the night 26 for 29, like I said, so the completion percentage way up there. Overall, it's good to still have things to improve on at this point in the season.
And listen, part of this is he's still getting his feet wet as a full-time starter, right? Like there's going to be, I know he's an experienced guy who's played a lot of football, but playing a whole game is different than, coming in spurts or even playing in one controlled second half. Like there's going to be some growing pains for him this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the running game and Ahmad Hardy again. I mean, another week, another 100+ yards on the ground for Ahmad Hardy. 24 carries, 130 yards, 3 more rushing touchdowns. I mean, this guy is just finding the end zone, it feels like, all the time. Every single drive, it feels like it's going to end with Ahmad Hardy in the end zone, and he just turns in another great performance. Jamal Roberts, he had another solid day, 6 carries for 52 yards, averaging 8.7 a carry. And then Marquise Davis gets in again, kind of like we speculated on Friday, and he goes 9 carries, 77 yards. Roberts also had a touchdown, and Tavares Jones had a touchdown on 4 carries, 24 yards. So, I mean, they're running the football really well again, Billy. Yeah,
can't say enough about what this rushing attack has been able to do. And I don't even really, I think the offensive line has been decent. I don't think they've been tremendous, which I just think is a credit to how good these backs are. Like they are unreal. And even if a play is not blocked perfectly, they're able to pick things up and make the offense right, even when they're wrong. Like it's one thing to have a good rushing attack. It's another thing to have guys that are just absolute weapons standing behind Berbula. So, another great game from them. And we'll talk about the offensive line. They've been good enough, but you just need to get the ball in these guys' hands and let them make plays.
Yeah, Ahmad Hardy up to 9 rushing touchdowns now on this season. I mean, it's September 29th. 9 rushing touchdowns already. That's pretty impressive. Already 2 separate games with 3 of them. And one of the things that I have kind of noticed is the ball security. That was a concern for us at the beginning of the season. He fumbled in the Kansas game, hasn't lost any fumbles. Missouri recovered that one, but we had some question marks about the ball security. And I feel like over the last couple of weeks, those have really gone away. And it just continues to impress me how he responds to first contact and just how tough he is to tackle. I mean, it's NFL level stuff right there. I mean, he is showing off traits that could have him going in the first round in a couple of years. It's so scary that he's just a sophomore.
Yeah.
He's just a sophomore. If he was draft eligible this spring, I mean, how high would he go? It's crazy to think about. I mean,
I think he would be I might give Pollard the edge. I was about to say he might be the best running back in the Titans roster if you were playing right now.
Maybe the Bears roster too.
Yeah, man.
Bears don't have a good run game either.
He's a phenom. And I remember we were talking about it. He's a good scheme fit. He was great at UL Monroe, but he'll be good. I mean, there's Heisman conversations about him, and I think that's warranted. A long way to go in that discussion, but feels almost like a foregone conclusion that if he stays healthy, he's going to finish as the SEC leading rusher by a healthy margin. I did not know he was going to be a game changer. I thought he was going to be good. I did not know he was going to be a game changer the way he is.
Yeah, I mean, he has completely elevated this offense to a new level. He's so much fun to watch week in, week out. It's been awesome, and I just continue to think about how lucky Missouri is to have him in that. He didn't end up somewhere else at one of these other SEC
Oh,
schools
yeah.
because he is absolutely one of the nation's best. Some of the other guys on offense that I want to highlight: Kevin Coleman Jr., 12 receptions in that game, up over 100 receiving yards. I thought that he had a really solid night.
I completely agree. And he continues to be a volume guy. I think the issue at receiver is, does Missouri have a second guy who can carry the load consistently? We saw Marquise Johnson had that big game against South Carolina. Norfleet was fantastic on Saturday, had a great game too against Kansas. But that to me is the question. Do they have a second guy they feel like they can consistently rely on to just take some of that load off of Kevin Coleman? But if you're playing the slot position in this system, you're going to get volume. You're going to get a chance to make plays, and certainly Coleman's been able to do that.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with what Brett Norfleet has put together.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last few weeks, really all season long. On Saturday, 6 receptions, for 52 yards, back into the end zone once again. I think an underrated part of his game, though, is how great of a blocker he is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that. He's been doing that throughout his career, but I've really started to notice it this season. That's just such an underrated trait for a player, I think, in the game. We focus on touchdowns and big catches, but if you're on that offense and you're a playmaker where you can also block when you're called upon, especially as a tight end, like that's huge. And I think he's done a wonderful job in that department, and he is proven to be very valuable in this offense. But I do agree with you. Like, is there a true second option to Kevin Coleman Jr.? You think Marquise Johnson? I think he has the ability to do that.
Again, yeah. We haven't seen it consistently.
We haven't seen it consistently. We just haven't. It hasn't been proven to us that he can be that guy. Like if Kevin Coleman Jr. goes down, who's Purbuella's top target? Is it Marquise Johnson? It might be, but I'm still waiting to see that connection. I feel like Marquise Johnson's connection with Brady Cook was stronger. And I'm not saying he can't build that with Purbuella. It's taking some time.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. So one other note on the receiving game, Donovan Olubade. I'm still kind of surprised. Again, he's a freshman. They don't need him to be involved right now.
Why he's not involved more?
But why is he not involved more given what he showed off early in the season? I mean, he was in that Kansas game and a couple of catches he made with in a high pressure, high intensity environment like that. I would have expected that they would give him a little bit more of a look, especially given how you're still kind of waiting for that guy behind Coleman to break out, and how Marquise Johnson hasn't really done that yet. Like, why not give Olubade a little bit more of a look?
I guess I'll have two answers for that question. And again, I don't know this. This is just speculation. One, I think, is just the limitations within this passing game in the way that it's set up. It's just not a passing game that's geared to get your outside guys very involved. Like, it's just not. And I would have loved to see, especially once the game's a little out of reach, them throwing to him more, giving some chances to make plays. But you look at the targets. Kevin Coleman had 12, Norfleet 6, Johnson 2, Jones 1, Roberts 4. Those were your top 5 most targeted guys. Olubade had 1. Manning has a target. Blood has a target.
It's going to look different.
Coleman and Norfleet are the guys playing. Coleman's in the slot. Norfleet's at tight end. This is just not an offense. And you can even go back to last year with Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper, or Luther Burton's freshman year when he played on the outside in Missouri almost exclusively through to Dom Lovett on the interior. It was Dom Lovett and Barrett Bannister. Like, this is just an offense that revolves around getting the guy in the slot the ball. And this year has extended to the tight end. It's just not an offense that's comfortable throwing to the sideline. And I think part of that's scheme related. And I think also, frankly, they just didn't throw the ball enough for If you've only got so many targets, they can only go to so many guys.
Yeah, I get that.
I agree with your criticism. I'm just saying I think part of that is the way the system's designed.
That's fair. And it also looks different when you're in a game against UMass when you're up by a lot and there's no pressure to throw the ball like there is in a game like against Kansas or against South Carolina when it's close in the fourth quarter. So I think those numbers are going to look a little bit differently. But yeah, I think that's fair. I just I don't know. I'm still kind of expecting to see Olubide play a role later in SEC play, and it's not a big role, but I think that he's shown enough that we should still be seeing him from time to time. But he's a freshman, and he has the ability to, continue to develop. And there, like I said, there's not a lot of pressure on him right now, given the options that you have ahead of him. The offensive line. Let's move on to that. I kind of mentioned earlier that I thought they took a little bit of a step back. Did you see the same thing, or what did you see from the offensive line for Mizzou?
Yeah, wasn't their best performance. I think part of that, no Caden Green. I didn't think Richardson had his best night. Again, speculation is that he'll be good to go. Caden Green will for Alabama. I think Judice too just takes some plays off, frankly, which is something that he's got to get fixed. I didn't think it was their best game. They're still struggling with some blitzes in terms of picking up stunts. I think it's a group that's been good enough. The question is, can they take that next step, be what they were in 23, where they're a truly dominant offensive front? I think if there's no Caden Green, that answer is probably no. But I'm not hitting the panic button. I think it's an offensive line that's good enough. I just don't think Saturday was their best performance.
Yeah, I thought it was specifically in pass protection, where they kind of fell short a little bit.
I was worried Purbulla was going to get killed there in the second half.
Yeah, and it's a concern when it's UMass, who's the opponent, because we talk about it time and time again. All of the tough defensive lines that they're about to go up against in SEC play with Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, really everybody down the list on the schedule. There are stars, and I thought that they handled South Carolina's attack pretty well, and then just to see that performance against a UMass team, it was a little bit disappointing. But it'll be big to get Caden Green back. Hopefully, it's for Alabama. We know it's not going to be an extended absence,
right?
At least we hope. That's what they have said. I believe when he went down, it was a 3 to 5 week timeline that was given. So Alabama would be right around that 3 week timeline. So if it does take a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer. But they would be very excited to get him back when they go up against the Crimson Tide after the bye week. Let's shift over to the defense and talk about that performance.
Oh my gosh, this defensive line. I don't know what else to say about them. They just love getting after it. They love hitting people. They love clogging up gaps. Boy, the depth with this group is impressive. And they forced a turnover. Obviously, Santana Banner had the interception, but it was their pressure on Hairston. They broke right through. Hairston couldn't see, just throws a ball and hit Santana Banner right in the hands. Good positioning on his part, not to take anything away from him, but that's an interception that should be credited to that defensive line. And that was something that I wanted to see more of from them, is not just generating consistent pressure, but enough pressure to generate turnovers. We saw that had been a concern of mine. Talking about going into this game, I mentioned this on the pregame show. Missouri hasn't had a turnover in the normal course of play this year. The second team defense against Central Arkansas forced a pair of turnovers in the fourth quarter. And then they had that late interception against Jalen Daniels, where Kansas is down 11, just pushing the ball down the field. So that was something I wanted to see from that group. And I was impressed to see it and blown away by the physicality of that defensive line.
Yeah. For me, I feel like it's kind of a tale of two stories here with the defensive line compared to the secondary. Defensive line has been menacing.
And I'll add the front six. I think the linebackers have been excellent.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with you there. I continue to just be blown away by the way Zion Young has played this season. He looks fantastic. And they needed that because, Damon Wilson, what he brings to the table too. That
They
duo.
both had 7 combined pressures, which is just an unreal statistic. So congratulations to those two guys. 2 great bookends. And Zion Young finished with 2 sacks. Zion Young, 2 quarterback hits. Damon Wilson 3. They weren't getting sacks, but Hairston did a good job of throwing the ball away. But they made some nice plays, and this will kind of lead into the secondary, Ian. But it felt like when they were getting stops in the pass game, it was because that defensive line was getting pressure.
Well, that's the thing, that the defensive line elevates the play of everybody else. If you can rush that internal clock of the quarterback and force the ball out quicker, it's going to make your life a lot easier for the secondary.
And for your linebackers. If you're plugging up gaps and those linebackers can see and don't have guards and tackles running at them, it becomes a lot easier to go make plays in the run game. And I think they've done a good job of allowing those linebackers that freedom to kind of see ball and get ball, as opposed to having to deal with guards and centers and big offensive linemen bearing down on them.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason, not to take anything away from the linebackers, who I think have been excellent this year. But I think that's a big reason Trotter's been able to make some plays on 3rd and short. I think that's a big reason Nick Rodriguez has had a nice season. Khalil Jacobs as well. You just take the pressure off the rest of that defense. All starts up front. They've been fantastic.
Yeah, they were great on 3rd down again. Lots of 3-and-outs forced by this Tiger defense against UMass. And so that's a positive. And, it starts with the defensive line, but, on this secondary, what did you see on Saturday? And do you still have some concerns? Because they, that group has been called out by Drinkwitz after the South Carolina game. And, he was saying like that needs to be better. That needs to get cleaned up. Did it get better? Was it cleaned up or no?
It was better. I don't know if it's anything that gives me confidence that long-term, this is a group that's going to be good, and they don't have to be excellent, but they do have to be good enough. They didn't have the busts they've had at some points, which was encouraging. But ultimately, Ian, they're going to go up, against 3 elite receivers for Alabama. And those 3 receivers are better than anyone they've seen so far. Maybe Nick Harbor, but the combination of Isaiah Horton, Jermaine Bernard, and Ryan Williams. I'd even throw the tight end, Josh Cuevas, has been a weapon for them in the passing game as well. Heck, their left tackle's catching passes now too. So the secondary is going to have to be ready to play. I think in terms of organization, it was a lot better this week. I still don't know if my questions about the secondary are answered. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I don't know if there's anything they could have done this week that would have convinced me it's fixed. Is that unfair to the group?
No.
Okay.
Not unfair at all. Because that's where I'm at too. That's where I'm at too. But again, I feel like it's difficult to grade in these types of games. Yeah. It's much easier, after South Carolina to be like, this is what needs to be fixed and this is what was good, because that level of competition is the standard.
Right.
That's just not the case.
Yeah.
With
UMass. See it. We could see it in those 2 games routinely. Guys getting open, and UMass, I think, A, didn't have the speed at receiver, and B, just didn't have enough plays for it really to matter.
We talked about how much, Lenore Sellers, the opportunities he had and the opportunities that were missed with guys wide open. Like, you're going to run into teams who are going to take advantage of your opportunities, and that's how you're going to lose games. You're 5-0 right now, but that's how you're going to end up in the loss column, is by these teams that have the talent at receiver like Alabama does, and the talent at quarterback. The quarterbacks you're going to face here in these upcoming weeks with Diego Pavia on the schedule, and Ty Simpson has looked a lot better, and
right.
It's John and Mateer down the line. It's like these star players that you're going to go up against are going to start taking advantage of the opportunities that some offenses have missed against this Mizzou secondary so far. And that's going to be the biggest issue. That's my biggest worry, I think, right now. And when you're 5-0, there are a lot of good things, but it's still not perfect. You're still going to have to pick out some things that you don't like, and I think that's the main one for me.
Agreed, Ian. It's like foreshadowing. You're reading the end of the fourth chapter of a book, and the author drops in that little hint on the last line where he's talking about, but soon the storm clouds roll. You know what I mean? Like it's like we can see it. It hasn't burned them yet, but it's angling there. It's hovering. And if things go wrong, we're going to be able to point back and say, listen, we saw this coming.
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth right there. We're going to get finished up here a little bit early today. Mizzou on the bye week. So they are off this weekend. They'll get prepared for Alabama, who comes to Furrow Field on October 11th. My final question for you, Billy.
Yeah.
What is the message to the team from the coaching staff at the bye week?
I think it's about focus. Making sure play in, play out, they're ready to go. Because they've not played a team that has the dynamic playmakers that Alabama has offensively and defensively. Regarding the offensive line, a playoff and like a playoff, LT Overton is screaming through, and now Prabula's on the ground. The ball's on the turf. Defensively, a playoff in the secondary, a miscommunication. Now Ryan Williams is running 30 yards free. Now Isaiah Horton is off and running, streaking down the sideline. Alabama will punish Missouri for mistakes in a way that South Carolina and Kansas couldn't do consistently enough. So it's about focus, making sure play in and play out. Missouri's executing 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, I think for me, it's you still have to prove yourself. Just because you're 5-0 and you're in the top 20. I mean, you look at the rankings and you look at all the SEC teams that are still ahead of you.
Yeah.
It might feel good to be in the win column, but the hardest part of your season, no doubt, is coming after this bye week.
How many SEC teams right now would be 5-0 with this schedule? Like, I think teams that wouldn't be Kentucky, South Carolina. Is that it?
Think South Carolina would lose to themselves?
Well, I guess we're flipping it. They're playing Missouri. Tough to gauge.
Right. No, you're
Florida,
right. Florida,
maybe.
Right.
Florida, Arkansas, maybe Auburn. Like, there's a lot of SEC teams.
And those teams could very well be 5-0 with this schedule. Yeah. I mean, you haven't.
I think Missouri's better than. I think Missouri's a top half team in this league, but they've got to keep improving and keep getting better.
Well, that comes from proving yourself. You're not you don't prove it until you go against these teams.
Exactly.
And you face them and you beat them.
Yeah.
Because until then, you haven't really separated yourself from the rest of the group. So, any final thoughts here, Billy?
Nope. Enjoyed it.
There we go. We'll be back later this week on Friday. Again, no Mizzou football this weekend, but they're feeling pretty good. A 5-0 start to the season after a 42-6 victory. One more time, would like to remind you that KCOU Kickoff is brought to you by Champs Chicken. Located on Cinnamon Hill Lane in Columbia, Champs Chicken offers fast and filling meals perfect for game day, late night, or grabbing in between classes. Real chicken, real fast, real good. Champs Chicken. The Missouri Tigers, a successful homecoming weekend. That'll do it for our show here today. For Billy Jones, I'm Ian Babrocky saying goodbye. You've been listening to KCOU Kickoff here on KCOU 88.1 FM, the student voice of the Missouri Tigers. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Greetings, KCOU listeners. Want to hear three grown men throw it back every Thursday from 3 to 4?
Yeah.